Welcome to Build in Public, the podcast where industry leaders pull back the curtain on how they actually built it. The hard calls, the pivots, the moments AI changed everything, and the lessons they wish they'd known sooner. I'm your host, Troy Mann. Each episode, we go deep with founders, operators, and innovators who are growing the business in a world that's moving faster than ever. No polished narratives, no highlight reels, just real conversations about the journey. Let's build. Today, we're joined by Paul Kortman, founder of Connects Digital, an agency helping businesses cut through the AI hype and actually implement automation that saves time, increases efficiency, and scales operations. Paul has spent years helping organizations streamline workflows, eliminate repetitive manual work, and build smarter systems using AI, low-code and no-code tools. What I'm excited about today is getting practical where businesses are getting stuck, what's breaking operationally, and how leaders can identify hidden bottlenecks, costing them time and revenue every single day. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You've seen the evolution of digital marketing and AI automation and consulting. What's changed in the market that's pushed Connects Digital in that direction?
Everything has changed. It seems kind of to lay the land a little bit. You asked about digital marketing. What we focus on now as an agency is just automation in general. But how we started our roots 16 years ago was that we started a digital marketing agency. But then we built a system internally using Trello and Zapier. That was 15 years ago, 14 years ago that we built that internal process and automation. In doing so, we got the attention of Zapier and that we ended up leaving digital marketing and focusing on automation. For the last 10, 11, 12 years, that's what we've been doing. So that was one pivot. The next pivot was when basically AI hit the scene. We need to pay attention to this to figure out how this is going to change automation. And if you haven't been paying attention, it has drastically changed automation and continues to. We're trying to pivot every day now to bring in the right tools. We've always been trying to bring in the right tools, but now it's even more breakneck pace of, okay, hey, Claude just released this, Anthropic just released this, or OpenAI just released this. Now, how does that apply and how can we use it? And the funny part is that most of our staff are former developers that then turn to low code, no code for consulting and building automations. And now we're going back into having essentially LLMs build code for us. So it still feels a little low code, no code, but we're back to the building. And so just kind of a fun pivoting every couple of weeks, it feels like now.
You can't escape AI today. A lot of companies say they want AI, they don't want to miss out. But in your experience, what do they actually need?
I think there's a couple of things that are at play here. What they actually need is improvement in process. That's better customer service, better sales processes, better fulfillment processes, etc. So along the journey, their life cycle of a customer in their business, there are different aspects of where AI could help. But the greater conversation is, what is the process today and what should it or could it be? And how can we make it better? It's not just, we need AI, let's throw it in there. It's more along the lines of, okay, well, how could it be better? And sometimes better is faster. Sometimes better is including other aspects that we don't have the time to include in our current staff and structure today. It's actually improving the process, which doesn't necessarily mean it's happening faster, but you're just getting a more quality result. So an example of that is, say, a sales process. If you get a lead and you're trying to chase that lead, there's only so much effort you can spend on that. And you can put it on automation of, okay, they're getting an email every 3 days from me, they're getting a text message, etc. And you could also add in, and then they get a handwritten, and I'll put that in air quotes, a handwritten card through a system that finds their address and sends them a postcard. Those are all possible and doable. But what happens if you throw an AI? What happens if you could do the next thing and not just, let's throw an AI in there, but the next thing would be read about this person. What are they posting? Check them on all their socials and not just haunt them of, hey, I saw you posted this on X yesterday. But hey, here's a piece of something that I've been reading or thinking that I think might apply to you based on what you're putting out there on X. And it's like, okay, that's a little bit more in depth, value driven, and gets their attention. Now, I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to follow all of my leads and on all their socials and dig into that. But I could build that system that would do it for me and use an AI in the back end just for decision making and determining, hey, is there value here or not?
That's the difference between marketing, outreach, and engagement, right?
Hmm.
It's a huge difference. I spent over 25 years in the manufacturing space. And when you're building a business, scaling it, when you're trying to grow, you come to these make versus buy decisions. And you talked about the releases, Claude's getting better, chat's getting better, all these different tools. How do you combat the people that think that they can build that inside their own business versus relying on the professionals to get the job done right?
I don't know. When you figure that out, get back to me. No. What we end up doing is basically we're consulting. I know a lot of your audience, they're actually the software builders. And what we do is more along the lines of we build Zaps, we build automations, we do build some software, but we connect software. And our basic premise is kind of, okay, there are different tools that are available, but they don't speak to each other or they may be lacking a certain function. Well, let's pull a tool off the shelf that has that function and stitch it in. And our rationale behind that, and this is what I say to somebody who's doubting, should I just build it myself? If you want email deliverability, you go to the tool that's focused on email deliverability. If you want conversion optimization, you go to the tool that's focused on conversion optimization. There's certain things that I don't know if I want to say they've honed the craft, but that's what they focus on and that's what they do. Back in my SEO days, I used to say there's over 400 engineers at Google working to improve the algorithm every day. That's what they do and that's what they're good at. So you're not going to outsmart that group of people. But what I'm saying here is, okay, if you have a best-in-class software that does one thing well, and that's what they're focused on, great. We'll just use that software for that and not the other pieces that they kind of also tack on that they're kind of less good at. We'll use best in class for each aspect of what you need in your process, and we'll stitch those together. So in that sense, I want to put a little hesitation here. We're recording this in 2026. Check me at the end of 2026 or 2027, but I bet there'll be lots of articles about the death of SaaS, and I bet the conversation will be about the death of SaaS. But where I'm at today is I think SaaS needs to learn, or subscription software needs to learn to focus on one thing and one thing well and do it better than I can build in a weekend with Claude Code.
That's a great nugget. Best practices, using things that are proven, that are honed for a specific task. You don't go to a Mexican restaurant to order chicken fingers.
Right. And if you do, you're going to be disappointed. That's a great illustration. I might use that.
You can have it. Can you share with us a before and after story where automation completely changed how a company operated?
I have one in mind. You had talked about manufacturing, and this was a couple of years ago. They're a custom door and hardware manufacturer. Beautiful front doors on houses, but also cabinetry doors. And they had large orders that would get lost on the floor because one piece would be have to get what they call remade or remake. It would have to go back to the beginning, get roughs on it, etc., and say it was damaged in the paint production area or the stain production area, and then it'd have to order a remake. Well, you have 75-80% of the order done or moving on, and you have this one piece that needs to get back through the whole system, but it needs a rush. It needs to move to the front of each station when it gets to the next station. What we do right now is we have a printer at the beginning of this whole process, and I have a feeling it was a dot matrix printer just for fun. Like you can just hear it, whatever, because it's on the floor. It's dusty. It's dirty. You don't want laser printer around that. But anyways, and they had a printer with different color paper. The remakes would be on pink and everything would be on white. You knew at your station if you got a pink, You're supposed to move that to the front of the stack. The problem was the folks in the office didn't know where things were on the floor. So they didn't even know there was a remake. They didn't know that 85% of the order was in the shipping department waiting for the remake. They didn't know any of that. What we implemented, and this is automation at a really crude level of, we implemented a scanner system. So the guys at each station would scan the barcode of the order, scan their station entrance barcode. So that's all they did. And then when they did the product, moved it, whatever, they'd scan the barcode of the order and scan the barcode of their exit of their station. Now we had all that data coming in and we were able to automate reports on orders. Now office administrative staff could just, type in the order number and they'd see, okay, here's where all of your order is in the paint area, or your order is in the milling area. And what we did, so that was phase one, is okay, now we have all the data. And phase two, putting the automation in to analyze that and determine what day it was going to ship. Now we actually they did local shipping, basically. They didn't use a third-party logistics. They had their own trucks, but they needed to plan which areas they were going to drive which truck on what day, based on, hey, this order, we predict it's going to be completely done on Wednesday, but the truck that goes to your area is on Friday. So you'll get your order on Friday. If people were to call in, we took that process from a bunch of guessing, a walk down to the floor and asking questions, etc. It took sometimes 3-4 hours to get back to someone about their order with this, what I'll call crude automation, because this isn't, yes, there's a whole bunch of zaps and stuff running in the back end, stitching all these programs together, but it's really just a scanner gun on the floor that changed this. But now with all that information, the folks in the office on that same call within 5 minutes can be able to answer the question and it's currently scheduled to be finished on Wednesday and shipped on Friday. And that saved the office multiple hours every day going and checking on the floor. That's just one example of a very concrete, physical, real world automation.
That's a great story. Appreciate you sharing. Given the economic disruptions that we're seeing and feeling right now, where do you see the market grow in the next 12 to 24 months, both overall and specific sectors?
So there's a couple of things. I have my feet in lots of different places, 1 foot in each canoe. One in reality of, I'm a small business owner. I'm running a business. I feel the market trends. I feel people not spending money right now, and that scares me to no end. But I also have my other foot in another canoe, which is kind of that visionary of where are we going despite economic trends right now? Where is the market actually going? Where is the industry going? And part of that is because of what AI is doing and the releases and all this, as well as kind of we could get into the mental health aspect of feeling we're always behind and never catching up. And it's, wait a minute, I thought AI was going to make us more efficient. So we'll get into that maybe. But that whole visionary aspect of what's going to happen, if I combine those two, the outlook is somewhat discouraging in the fact that we will employ fewer people. That's just a given. We will employ fewer people and put out the same amount of output, whatever it is that we're doing. So us as business owners, that's the future. But that also means that everybody we're going to move towards more of a managerial position where I'm responsible for the output, but I'm not crafting it myself with my two hands. I'm overseeing scripts, automations, AI, agents, you fill in whatever word you want to put there, that are producing the output, and I'm putting my seal of approval on it. So that's kind of, everybody's moving in that direction. So if I were to say 6 months to 12 months from now, we've already done a little bit of downsizing. And I think that most companies will end up doing that. I don't see the heyday of startups hiring hundreds of people. I see them hiring 5 or 6 people to create hundreds of agents.
That's an interesting intersection in terms of productivity from AI versus doing not even more with less, but doing the same with less. So let me ask you this. If AI could save your leadership team 10 hours a week, where would you want that time to be saved?
Well, because we've already hinted at the economic challenges that some of us are facing, I know I'm dramatically facing that. I would put all of that in lead generation and marketing and advertising and new business, whether that's producing content, talking to people, doing cold outreach, etc. That is where the majority of my focus is, because what we sell, just our company, we're consultants. We sell our time. And the thing that we need to do is have more people buying our time. There's the secret sauce to consulting. Make sure you have a lot of people, because churn is the name of the game in consulting. We don't have the glorious of subscription and ongoing revenue that product people have. We constantly have to reach out and get new clients. So all that being said, the leadership team of our business, we're constantly focused on how do we implement better automations for our marketing and sales to be able to get new leads and close deals faster.
Perfect. Makes total sense. Paul, for business owners listening right now who know their teams are drowning in manual work, disconnected systems, AI confusion, whatever the case, what's the next best step for them?
So often there's the crawl, walk, run philosophy of like, don't try to build the whole system today. Don't try to go out and run a marathon tomorrow. Start with crawl. I'm sorry, we're not babies, but start with that crawl of like, what's that low hanging fruit? What's that one process that, and what I like to do is either something that you do a lot of that just takes a lot of time. And it doesn't have to be you. It can be somebody on your staff. What if you could free them up? They're spending 5 hours a day doing this 5-step process. Well, what if we could eliminate that or automate that? The other area of focus is, what are the things that you're not doing that would bring value, but you just don't have the time for it? And so focus on one of those two, even if it's a 5-step process, focus on one of those steps that can bring about a relief, a win. And that's that low hanging fruit. So focus on that for automation, and then build upon it and build upon it and build upon it. I'd like to make some sort of illustration here. You don't have to have the full end product and system in place. Everything we're talking about is low code, no code, Zapier. You just hook it up and it's like, oh, I'm going to tweak it tomorrow. I'm going to expand it tomorrow. We start with a 5-step Zap. We turn it into a 300-step Zap over the course of 6 months, because we're just adding in, well, in this situation, I want to do this. And in that situation, I want this to happen. The complication doesn't need to happen on day one. You start with, let me just deal with this. In this simple situation, I want this to happen. If there's any other concern or caveat, break out of the automation and let a human deal with it. And then over time, you can expand that and make it more robust. And so start small. Everybody says it, but I'm going to say it again. Start small. Start with one thing that you can automate today.
That's great advice. And the number one mistake people make in strategy is overextending, trying to boil the ocean. It is about that crawl, walk, run, right? Low hanging fruit, build it, prove it out, start to scale it, versus just trying to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks.
It depends on your industry, what that is. I'd love to just kind of say, hey, go do this one automation tonight. One of them, I'll throw a nice one out there, since we've been talking a lot of sales and focus and that sort of thing. Duck Soup, DUX-Soup, SOUP. Weird name, kind of a cool thing that hooks in with automations to help on LinkedIn. So I want to request people's LinkedIn connections. Well, if I have them filling out a form as a lead gen and they put their LinkedIn URL in there, I don't have to go and click to it and then request connection. I can just pass that information to Duck Soup and have Duck Soup request that connection. And once they accept the connection, Duck Soup can actually send them messages based on certain settings that I have in there. So the first thing is just set up your first campaign and connect whatever CRM you have to Duck Soup. So it will simply request a connection. And you can even have it say, put a message in there. Hey, I saw you were interested in our product. Request the connection. That's one, I'd like to say, simple automation that maybe you're not doing today, but that you can do just to be, oh, I'm continuing to build my LinkedIn connection base with all my leads. so that they can see what I'm marketing on LinkedIn,
All right. So Duck Soup, our next sponsor.
right? We'll see how that goes.
Hey, Paul, it was great having you on Build in Public. Thanks for taking us behind the scenes of Connects Digital.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much to those watching or listening. Until next time, I'm Troy Mann with Ascend Integration Partners. Remember, the pace of change in the market is getting faster every day. Adapting to change is not a requirement, but neither is survival. Rise above with Ascend. Take care.